remembering the journey of freedom. These were the words they just sang. The land we are on was once another's. We mourn the legacies of oppression. Healing is our way forward. Joy is the birthright of all. Thank you so much. And that's a new composition by Dave, so fantastic. So like rivers from places near and far, we come together again. And we do this as Unitarian Universalists, meaning that we are atheists and theists in worship together. We are atheists and theists and Buddhists and pagans and Jews and Christians and New Agers and star-bellied sneeches and plain-bellied sneeches and on and on and on. And you know what the world says? The world says, what? How is that even possible? What? And our answer to them is, this is possible because we are in covenant, one with another. The statement, we need not think alike to love alike, says it so well. Our desire is to extend compassion to each other, especially in those moments when relationships feel strained. We strive to give each other the benefit of the doubt. We do our best to remember that each of us is on a learning journey. No one is perfect, and we all have a piece of the puzzle to share. In covenant, we find the meaning, the possibility of our community together. And now, if you are worshiping at home with us, you are invited to share the names of people you are holding in your personal thoughts and prayers this morning by typing those names into our West Shore Facebook chat. And if you are here, please take this moment to greet your neighbor. Namaste hands are great for sending peace and love, and elbow bumps work pretty well too. For a handshake or a hug, please be careful to ask permission first. Let's greet each other right now. So folks, this has been our greeting time, where we remember that we are not alone amidst the trials and turning points of life, but that we are held in the arms of beloved community, and we are surrounded by the Spirit of life, and that is the hymn that we turn to right now, number 123 in your gray hymnal, Spirit of Life. And as Dave and I sing, I invite you to hum this song to yourself as Dave has described it. Use your inner singing voice. Let us sing.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. grasses, roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Happiness, said the Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, is not made by what we own, it is what we share. Happiness is in our sharing. It is in the things we are able to do because we do them together. The acoustic panels, which are now installed in Baker Hall, is one example of this kind of happiness. When we are able to resume regular coffee hour, you will hear the difference. It's amazing. Thank you to generous donors who gave the money for this. Thank you to Tom Smith, who installed the panels. Happiness is in this kind of sharing, and there is more I can say about how Lois Reamer has completely transformed the look of our West Shore offices through her generous donation of top quality office furniture. Thank you so much, Lois. And so now I invite you to consider how you might help create some happiness this morning. If you are an annual pledger to West Shore, know that your gift means that this community stays vibrant and strong. If you are considering a special gift this morning as the offering baskets come around, know that we will put all this money in service to loving kindness. And whether you are here or at home, you may also give your gift via text, as the instructions on the screen indicate. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Metaphors are powerful. Entire cultures fall under their sway. They can put us to sleep. And even as we think we are spiritually and intellectually awake, we are snoring our lives away. It is said that the master metaphor of our culture is the American dream fantasy of a permanent blue sky season for busyness and achievement and accumulation. New invention succeeds new invention endlessly. Endlessly growth goes on. There are no limits which cannot be transcended. And if a certain limit does seem to be unsurpassable, well, that only reflects a human failure of imagination and or effort. This is the master metaphor, but what room is there in this master metaphor for rest? What room is there for decline or death? What room is there for confusion or perhaps just wandering? What room is there for hugely disruptive pauses to normal living as we experienced 20 years ago with that horrific event of 9/11, and then the things we have experienced this past 18 months with the pandemic? What room is there for truly unsurpassable limits? When the American dream fantasy of onward and upward forever dominates our imaginations, no room is given for anything that is not sunny or creative or limitlessly growing, which also means that no room is given for much, if not most, of our lives as we truly live them, which means we are alienated from others and from our very own selves. Sanity requires saying no to the master metaphor of our era. Sanity requires acknowledging, in the classical words from the Hebrew Bible, that for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up what has been planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to build up, a time to break down, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. That is what sanity requires. So for the sake of sanity, this morning we are exploring a better metaphor for the meaning of life. On this momentous morning when we find ourselves gathered face to face for the first time officially since March of 2020, when the pandemic rushed into our lives, knocked the American dream master metaphor for a loop. This better metaphor we are exploring today, it comes from the seasonal cycles of nature, like Ralph Waldo Emerson or Henry David Thoreau or Margaret Fuller, all our other transcendentalist spiritual ancestors. Like them, we are reading the book of nature as if it were itself a kind of Bible, like the Transcendentalists, but also like the one who spoke of finding sermons in stones, who was none other than the great William Shakespeare. And then much more recently, there is Quaker activist and teacher Parker Palmer, who in his beautiful work entitled Let Your Life Speak says, "Our lives are dependent upon an inexorable cycle of seasons, on a play of powers that we can conspire with but never can control. Seeds move through their life stages in an endless cycle of seasons, and the cycle of seasons reminds us that the journey never ends." Again, Parker Palmer says, "We are participants in a vast communion of being, and if we can open ourselves to its guidance, we can learn anew how to live in this great and gracious community We can, he says, and we must, if we want our sciences to be humane, our institutions to be sustaining, our healings to be deep, our lives to be true. And so for the sake of humanity, sustainability, healing, and truth, we now go to nature and to its turning seasons. And start with the one that we are about to enter, come September 22nd and extending through December 20th, autumn. The autumn season, like the others, will inevitably bring to mind personal associations for some that will not be there for others. We know this, yet we can still recognize broad themes that will be valid for everyone in the same climate zone. With autumn comes the harvest, and then decline. With autumn, the days grow shorter. The green growth of the summer browns and begins to die. It is, as Shakespeare puts it, that time of year thou mayst in me behold, when yellow leaves, or none, or few, do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold, bear ruined choirs, where late the sweet birds sang. Yet the paradox of autumn is that even as the boughs shake against the cold, even as the natural world is busy with decay, seeds are being scattered that will bring new growth in the spring. Nature plots its own resurrection. Rebirth is enfolded within dying. And from this we can take hope when in our own lives we are feeling the pull of autumn in some form or fashion. A relationship breaks apart, an increase in a feeling of loneliness, a job that is not working or seems targeted for downsizing, one's own aging, and the surprising sudden losses that tell us we are getting older. Autumn happens in our lives, and it can be a disorienting time, a time of hopelessness. But we must remember the lesson of the season. Nature plots its own resurrection. Seeds are falling everywhere, seeds which will sprout new life in the future. There is a wholeness in nature, and it endures despite the seeming decline of its separate parts. And so too, there is a wholeness in each of us. The decline that we experience is happening, and yet invisibly, seeds are being scattered through that decline, incredibly, through that decline. And those seeds will bear new fruit in the season, some season to come. They surely will, beyond the now in which we may be feeling real fear, the now in which we may be feeling real anger, real grief. Autumn has its gift for us. And so does the next season, winter, which commences December 21st and ends March 19th. Says Parker Palmer, winter is a season when death's victory can seem supreme. Few creatures stir, plants do not visibly grow, and nature feels like our enemy. And yet the rigors of nature, of winter, like the diminishments of autumn, are accompanied by amazing gifts. And certainly one of those gifts is beauty, the beauty of a crisp winter day and snow that has bedazzled grass and trees all underneath a brilliant blue sky. To this gift of beauty, add another gift, which is a reminder that times of dormancy and deep rest are essential to all living things. One's saw cannot be perpetually sharp. regularly. It must be removed from active use to be sharpened and prepared for the next round of work. This is a law of living. But the gift that Parker Palmer mentions, which I am resonating with most of all this morning, is clarity. Winter's gift of utter clarity. How he says, as he says, in winter, one can walk into woods that had been opaque with trees only a few months, or with summer, only a few months earlier, and see each of those trees singly and clearly. See the ground on which they are located. Winter clears the landscape, however brutally, gives us a chance to see ourselves and to see each other more clearly, to see the very ground of our being. You know, in this particular sense, it could be said that the pandemic has plunged our world, our entire world, into winter for 18 months now. And it has thereby exposed, with utter clarity, the fault lines in the normal arrangement of things. Author George Packer speaks to this when he says that COVID-19 should have been the great leveler. You don't have to be in the military or in debt to be a target. You just have to be human, he says. But from the start, its effects have been skewed by the inequality that we have tolerated for so long. He goes on to say, when tests for the virus, remember, were almost impossible to get hold of, remember that time? The wealthy and the connected, the model and reality TV host, Heidi Klum, the entire roster of the Brooklyn Nets, the president's conservative allies, they were somehow able to get tested. Meanwhile, ordinary people with fevers, chills, had to wait in long and possibly infectious lines only to be turned away because they weren't actually suffocating. That's George Packer, but do you remember that? The winter of COVID-19 has cleared the landscape. And what we have been able to see with a clarity unknown in usual times is inequity and injustice of multiple forms, multiple kinds, and it is intolerable. And there is work to do. There is work for us to do. Winter's gift of utter clarity teaches about the bad things of our world, but also about the good. So much was lost during the pandemic. And as the Joni Mitchell song says, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? Gone. Graduations, celebrations, events that had to be canceled. Gone. Children going to face-to-face school, missing out on friendships and activities. Gone. Going out to movies. Going out anywhere, really. Gone. Being able to come here to West Shore and just from seeing other people's faces to feel loved and welcomed and connected. Gone. The comfort of singing as a congregation, which is still not possible. Gone. The comfort of a worry-free hug. Gone. Seeing each other's faces maskless, indoors, which is still not possible. Each of us has a story of loss, personal and collective, this past 18 months. And don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? Winter gifts us with utter clarity. Woods that had been opaque with summer only a few months earlier are now exposed and bare. And this becomes a chance to see truly and to know more fully than ever before. And no season lasts forever. This too shall pass. It is said that this too shall pass. And while on the one hand it sounds obvious, on the other hand, the rigors of winter can get to a point that it seems like winter will never end. Does that make sense? Like it'll never end. Winter's grip on us so strong, it feels like it will never end. And then winter does end. Winter does end. So now consider the gift of spring, which reigns March 20th to the 19th of June. Winter inevitably turns to spring. It is guaranteed, but the thing we need to really pay attention to is that the turning of winter to spring is not like the flipping of a light switch from off to on. It is a process. And I like how poet William Carlos Williams paints a scene of this as a waste of broad, muddy fields, brown with dried weeds, standing and fallen. Patches of standing water, the scattering of tall trees. All along the road, the reddish, purplish, forked, upstanding, twiggy stuff of brushes and small trees with dead brown leaves under them. Leafless vines, lifeless in appearance. Sluggish spring, dazed, approaches. They enter the new world naked, cold, uncertain of all save that they enter. This is the turning of winter to spring. And the point is, it is not pretty. It is easy to want to leap to late spring when the gift awaiting us there is the world in full bloom, flowers blazing in yellows and reds, and love is in the air. We want to jump to that. But you know what? You can't get to pretty until you go through the valley of ugly and messy first. You can't get to pretty unless you go through the valley of ugly and messy first, which is what early spring is like. Ugly and messy. I have walked in early spring, says Parker Palmer, through fields that will suck your boots off. A world so wet and woeful that it will make you yearn for a return to winter. Yet even this has its gift for us. Parker Palmer goes on to say, though spring begins slowly and tentatively, it grows with a tenacity that never fails to touch me. The smallest and most tender shoots insist on having their way, coming up through ground that looked only a few weeks earlier as if it would never grow anything again. With all the mess and the muck, he says, I find it hard to credit the small harbingers of larger life to come. I do. Hard to hope until the outcome is secure. Spring teaches me, though, he says, to look more carefully for the green stems of possibility, for the intuitive hunch that may turn into a larger insight, for the glance or the touch that may thaw a frozen relationship, for the stranger's act of kindness that makes the world seem hospitable again. All of this is the gift of early spring, when everything feels so messy, and yet the green stems of possibility are there, and all we must do is wait and watch for those green stems, make ourselves available to them, not to wall ourselves off with a frozenness, with an impenetrable cynicism, but to open up our hearts. West Shore, West Shore, now that we are returning to face-to-face community, now that we are finding our way back to ourselves. After 18 months of social distancing, this right now is like early spring for us. We are in early spring. I just want to hear you say amen, but thank you. This is early spring for us. We are in that time now, messy, awkward, and yes, it's going to be sometimes plug ugly. And you know, to do anything right in this pandemic time, I mean, oh my God, it's like you got to be a professional epidemiologist. You should see what staff meetings are like, where we're just sweating bullets, trying to figure out how do we do this, right? Ugh. It is exhausting. But all we can do is do our best. All we can do is faithfully look for the green stems of possibility amidst all of the messiness. Let us faithfully look for the harbingers of new congregational life to come, with patience, with compassion, and we may be different and even better than we were before. Actually, I'll say amen to that. Amen. Yeah. It is the turning of the seasons. So many lessons we can learn, remembering that we are participants in a vast communion of being, and that this implies certain duties and certain limitations. Each season with its wisdom gift, guiding our personal lives and collective lives into a greater wholeness. And finally, we arrive at summer, beginning June 20th and ending September 21st, where we are right now, but for 9 days more only 9 more days. It is a time when spring is fulfilled. The days are at their longest. Life is at its peak. And one word comes to mind that sums up the gift of summer to us, and it is abundance. Abundance. Now, if Emerson were here, he'd use that 19th century term, beautiful term, refulgence. Refulgence, that is what this time is all about, abundance. The gift is for us to enjoy, enjoyment, via staycation or vacation, to escape routine and to see the world from a different angle, to see your life, your family from a different angle, to take time to do summer reading, to take time off from work if possible, to be with friends and family in a different way, to travel, to play, to receive these good things into our lives as far as we can, certainly as our pandemic reigns, which can be so hard to do. At times we might just not know how to receive the abundance, how to trust it, how to take it in, accept it. We crave it, and yet we can be so good at deflecting it, folks. We crave praise from others, and yet we can deflect that, devalue praise right from the start because we assume that the other person must be insincere. Working like crazy to make the money, to afford the lifestyle that we don't have any time to enjoy because we don't make the time to enjoy it. What incredible unhappiness. Not knowing how to receive the gift of summer into us. And you know, this is one of the main reasons why this community of faith exists, why West Shore exists, why we create this beloved community of friendship and service, why we want it to be a version of nothing less than Thoreau's Walden Pond. We want it to be a place which helps fulfill those immortal words that Thoreau said. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, to discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear. nor did I wish to practice resignation unless it was quite necessary. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. That is thorough. Autumn and winter, spring and summer, throughout all the turning seasons of the Spirit, let us live deliberately. Let us front only the essential facts of life. Let us live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. The Bible of the turning seasons teaches us how. Amen. And now we turn to our beloved water celebration, in which we pour the waters of our life into a common bowl. Spirit of life, come as we feel warmly connected with each other in beloved community.
Spirit of life, come as we remember beloved friends who died this past year, or those who have moved away, absent in body, but not in spirit.
Spirit of life, come as we expand our circle of concern to the city, to our nation, to the world, to the joys and sorrows of our animal brothers and sisters, to the well-being of our planet Earth, which is our mother. Let us recommit once again to the values of our Unitarian Universalist principles.
Spirit of life, come. Help us use this moment in time to open up a space in our hearts, to ask how we can grow more as individuals, how we can help make West Shore a stronger community, how we can make our world a better place.
And now our ushers will come forward to collect the water that you have brought. When a pitcher comes your way, you'll want to pour your water into it, pass that pitcher on down the pew. As for the water we collect, we will use it in dedication rituals this year as a way of blessing our children with water infused by the beauty and magic of our diverse stories, together with the values and the hopes which unite us. And now, let the water celebration begin. We have all been invited to bring some water today, and this water is meant to symbolize something valuable and important for you. Here are just some of the personal stories about the water we are bringing today as our waters are gathered. Listen.
From Judy Montgomery comes this story. Water. I am grateful that I live where I can see Lake Erie all the time in all her moods. When I first moved by the lake, I was so focused on missing the woods and the nature that had been around my house that it took me a moment to realize, oh my goodness, I see nature every day. Some days the lake is flat and still. Other days there are small waves. Some days there are big waves with big white caps. Falling asleep hearing the waves is the best.
The stories of our water. Listen, from Kathy Strasser. My daughter's home uses well water. It has a strong phosphorus smell. It is safe to drink, but not palatable, and should not be used in making delicate soups. Kathy's the best soup maker on the planet, just side note there. My 1-year-old grandson sees that water differently. In a second, he will overturn the dog's filled copper water bowls, and he loves the chaos of me holding him with one arm, mopping up the water with my other arm as he cheers on the excited dogs. My grandson relishes his bathtub time, laughing and kicking the water nonstop. Sitting on my hip, he is mesmerized watching the kitchen sink's water and suds go down the drain. My grandson has much to teach me.
The stories of our water. Listen. From Mimi Mayer. I bring water that symbolically comes from the Pacific, from the coast in Gig Harbor, Washington, where I spent 5 wonderful days with the entire Mayer clan. The last time we were all together was at my husband's memorial service, but this was a joyful occasion as my grandnephew married his high school sweetheart in a sun-filled waterfront wedding. Afterward, my stepson and stepdaughter and I spent a few days as tourists in Seattle. A wonderful time to relax and reconnect.
The stories of our water. Listen, from Barbara Walker. Torda Gorge, Transylvania, Romania, 2021. They have called us brave, the first Americans that they have seen since COVID. Brave, perhaps? I am not sure. We enter down Torda Gorge, and I sit down on a rock by a flowing stream, gaining peace. A sudden storm crops up, bending the nearby tree in half. When we leave hurriedly, rain trickling down my back to climb the slippery rocks, I remember it is perfectly acceptable to be brave and scared at the same time. My water is a reminder of this contradiction.
The stories of our water. Listen. From Judy Marjoanne. Several years ago, we visited Acadia National Park in Maine. On our first day in the park, we went straight to the ocean. There is a long stretch of rocky beach. We're talking huge pink granite boulders along the ocean path. I remember climbing down on one of the boulders close to the water. It was a perfect, cool, sunny September day, and I laid back on that boulder, covering my eyes with my hat. Within minutes, my breathing and heart rate slowed in time with the ebb and flow of the ocean swells. I felt my body melt into the rock, and I was soon completely relaxed. I became part of the beach that day, letting the power of the sea and earth take me home.
the sound from a whistling kettle, in the gently alighting crystals of ice, in the dewdrops of a colorful petal. Water, 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 to live everyone source to mouth, just like the food of love from a nursing mother. Water, 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 sweet as an angel's kiss, salt as her falling tears, droplets in patience wearing away the mountain of time for billions of years. In the silent face,
Narcissus admires
water to kill, for in a global battle to chill, well in a plastic bottle to find between air and earth, both cold and wet, says Aristotle. Water, mild as a mermaid's song, wild when the oceans roar, never been born and never been buried, infinite waves caressing the shore. Water, 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 water,
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again.
A couple reminders. Please join us for, well, if you can, for virtual coffee hour at 11:30 a.m. And of course, we'll have a little gathering out there after the service for folks gathered here. The sermon chat will happen twice. I'll be here in the sanctuary around 11:45, and if any of you want to join me to further explore the worship service or the sermon, I'll be in here for a time, and then I'll hurry home and do the sermon chat there via Zoom at 12:30. A couple more things. I'm going to invite folks to give our ushers and greeters, and Diane Alcorn in particular, I don't know if she's in here, but a round of applause, because we haven't done this for a long time. Thank you so much. You know, it's one thing just to, pass the baskets, but this is a big service. So anyhow, great job, guys. Thank you so much there's Diane right there. Give her a round of applause. Thanks for hanging in there. This was complicated. Yeah. Following the benediction, I'm going to process out of the sanctuary through those double doors with the bowl of water. I'm going to go outside to where our children are. They're going to add their water to ours so that our water is complete. And you are welcome to join me if you wish. We will process right out. But here now are our benediction words. The highest motive is to be like water. Water is necessary to all living things. It asks nothing in return. Rather, it flows humbly to the lowest level. Nothing is weaker than water, yet against those things which are strong and hard, nothing can surpass water or stand in its way. May we all learn the ways of water, and may it be so. Ashe and Amen.